You're listening to the Next Team podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Next Team podcast F1. I'm Tarun. Joining me is my usual partner in crime, Yash, and a face that we haven't seen for a long time on this show, but he's a good friend of the show. We have Sharat with us, and Sharat is continuing his streak, a certain streak that something has happened every time he has come on the show. We'll reveal what it is soon. But guys, how are you feeling? How was the Aussie GP, the first race of the year that is at an acceptable time for us Asian people?
It's a very rare for time to be acceptable for us. Well, apart from the European Grand Prix, but that's still acceptable, like prime acceptable, you know. Yeah.
Right. Yes, and the streak that Sharat has on coming on this show is every time he comes on this show, it's always at a Grand Prix that Max doesn't finish, and I have to say I'm glad to see that streak continue. And we'll talk more about that in a bit once we start talking about the weekend itself. But before that, Yash, take it away with the message, man.
So yes, guys, thank you so much for all your support across our various podcast channels on our football, F1, and cricket. We really appreciate all your support and all your comments we get on our videos. So be sure to check us out on our Instagram and TikTok at the Next Team SG, and also on our YouTube and Spotify at the Next Team Podcast.
Thank you so much, Yash. And now let's get right into the weekend itself. As usual, we will start with qualifying. And I have to confess, I didn't watch the whole of qualifying. I watched the highlights. So you guys are going to have to help me out a bit on this weekend. So starting with...
The main question first is, why weren't you watching qualifying?
You
do not call yourself a diehard F1 fan.
I had to drop my dad off at the airport. I couldn't really watch qualifying on my phone.
Basically, he was having an F1 race on himself, trying to drop his airport at the airport and then get him back.
For politically correct reasons, I cannot admit to that. I may or may not have been envisioning myself as a F1 driver, but well,
that's what happens when you have a F1 race at a prime time.
Right.
Yes.
You're unable to make it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit unfortunate, but it's still better than having it at like 1 a.m. and had to go to uni the next day.
Yeah.
Well, it's just how the dice fall sometimes. But coming back to F1 qualifying, Q1, we had a pretty big incident, wasn't it, between the two pay drivers in the sport, and let's start with that. And Sharat, what's your thoughts on that? Who was at fault?
I would say Canada is at fault here. Yeah, it was a very strange incident between Latifi and Stroll. So obviously what happened, I think, was that Latifi had let Stroll through, I think it was, and then Latifi decided to speed up again, and then they made contact. It was an expensive crash, I think, from looks of it, for both teams.
It's an expensive weekend for Aston Martin. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, because Stroll just got his car fixed right before that, like before he went out for Q1. So for me, I would say it was 50-50. I don't think one team or one party was more to blame for. It was just a very weird accident that you wouldn't expect to happen in qualifying, you know what I mean? Yeah, so Yash, what do you think about that?
I think it's same. I feel that the blame is kind of 50-50, because like once Latifi allowed Stroll by, as a driver, when you go by, you wouldn't expect someone who just let you by to come back at you again. But at the same time, I feel like Stroll has this reputation of where he's kind of not aware of things going on around him. And it's happened quite a lot of times. I believe there's one year at the end of the race, he crashed with Seb on the checkered flag on his way in lap in. And I think it was in Malaysia, I think. Can't remember which year.
2017.
Yeah, 2017. Yeah. And it's because he just wasn't looking in his mirrors, and they collided and stuff like that. So I feel it's a little bit of the same. I would say the blame is more towards a little bit of Stroll, in my opinion. But then at the same time, I do feel that Latifi has part of the blame as well, because as a driver, like in the sense of like the gentleman accord, you'd kind of feel that once someone lets you by, he's not going to immediately like on the next second come and overtake you back, especially when he's not pushing and neither are you pushing. So it was kind of a very big misunderstanding, and in all perspective, it was a very expensive crash for both teams. I mean, Aston Martin had a very torrid weekend with not just Seb but Stroll as well, and it was very expensive. Like I think because now with the cost caps, all of this is going to be really crucial, because all of this basically takes your money away from your developmental money. So, and they're already at quite far at the back foot, as you can see from their pace for Aston Martin. So yeah, not a good weekend for them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stood out to me about that incident, I think my viewpoint is a bit different to yours, Yash, is, once you let a driver through, you shouldn't be going back and look and trying to take that place back, especially not immediately after. It's like, it's not even the next corner, It's just, you give the place back and then you immediately go for it. And that doesn't seem right to me. And so I would say that's where the fault is, which is, if you give out the place, then you gave out the place, you should let it go for at least a little bit longer.
So you're saying it's Latifi's fault, basically?
Yeah, so I'm going to say it's more on Latifi here.
I mean, the only reason why I just have a little bit of disagreement is because the track kind of turned right, and I get that Stroll had to turn right, but I felt Stroll turned right a little too aggressively. Whereas there was a lot of space. I mean, he was on his outlap, basically. You could just hug the outside line, but he chose, I don't know what he was thinking. He chose to put it in to the right, basically.
I think he was trying to let the car behind through. I can't remember who it was.
There was another car. I think it was Alfa Romeo. One of the Alfa Romeos.
Yeah, I think it was Zhou Guanyu, if I'm not wrong. I think he wanted to let him through, so he moved over to give space, and that's why I guess he moved right a bit aggressively in that sense.
Yeah, it could be.
It's not something that should be happening, I think, at this level.
It happens really rare, honestly, like this kind of accidents. But to be very honest with you, I kind of had a feeling that something like this would happen. The way the cars were going so slow on the outlap, like, I don't know, I just had this second feeling, like instinct feeling that, something like this is going to happen. Someone's just going to crash on someone in the outlap. And that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, luckily both of them weren't going at race, or either one of them wasn't going at racing speed, because if you're going at racing, that would have been even a huge crash.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, it was still quite a huge crash. So, yeah.
Yep. But I guess Q1 ended with not too many further surprises, except maybe K-Mag out in Q1. I was surprised by that, to be completely honest. What about you guys?
Jared?
Well, Haas themselves were a bit surprised to have qualified that low, I think it was. Because obviously we saw in the first two races, they had the pace to be in the top 10 quite easily. So I think it was a shock for them to get out qualified by the McLarens, by the Alpines, the usual suspects that you would think that would not necessarily out qualify a Haas. So I think as a whole, Haas didn't have a very good weekend here in Australia. I think right from FP1, I think Magnussen mentioned that the car just didn't have a lot of pace for some reason. So which is weird, because if in the past, Haas actually had a pretty good time here in Australia. They had some pretty solid results, or at least they were going to get solid results before tire failures. But anyway, point is, maybe it's track specific, who knows? Maybe the first two tracks suited them more than this track. So hopefully, they bounce back and you'll see them in the next race at Imola. Yash?
I think Gunther said there was something to do with their tire warm-ups or something like that. Like they weren't able to get their tires into the optimum range, which they would were probably able to do a lot better in like the previous two races. So I guess that comes to a little bit of track specific as well for Haas, but I don't think it's too much to worry. Like, sometimes like a lot of things, like we have seen with McLaren as well, they were like really bad the first two races. And then suddenly this race, they were like up with pace. But this is just like a false kind of inclination that, it's not that they're up there with pure pace. It's just that some tracks suit some other cars a lot better in this current new era of Formula One. So we will see that little bit of, shuffling around the pack throughout the season, I feel. Yeah. But I just wanted to say before we move on to Q2 is that Stroll basically allowed Seb to actually participate in Q2. In Q1,
yes.
actually, sorry.
That's very true.
So it was like a big brain move by Aston Martin to allow Seb to get one lap in. So
Bring out the
Yeah, just
tinfoil
jokes.
hats, boys.
yeah, man.
I mean,
Teamwork, hashtag teamwork.
Hashtag teamwork.
I mean, ultimately, he still qualified at P17, was it?
Yeah,
Seb?
P17 or 18, somewhere at the
But
back.
to be fair to Seb, right? He the whole weekend, FP1 he had an engine issue. FP2 I think he had limited running, and FP3 I think he crashed again. So I think given the limited running, I would say the lap time that he put in for Q1 was pretty decent. But Seb just didn't look comfortable back in the car after not having it in 2 races. So
I think that's the thing factor which played in for Seb as well. I felt like he had COVID, and I think his COVID was pretty bad from what I was hearing in the news. So like he actually had some like proper issues, like whereas some of us we were probably asymptomatic or something. So I think that kind of affected him, and then probably took him a while to get into the car, and probably just missing the first 2 races, missing a lot of track time, kind of didn't suit him well as well. So I guess that kind of showed in the entire weekend, I guess.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat that he only completed 26 laps before the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, throughout the free practice and as well as quali. And he
Qualifying,
completed,
yeah.
and he did like 22 during the race, which is
Yeah, before crashing again.
before the crash.
Yeah.
But that Aston Martin just looks like a very difficult car to drive in general. So
Yep.
I mean, I don't think you can blame him there. It's like one of those cars that's just understeer and oversteer at the same time, but it's not fast also, and ultimately it's just pointless, literally pointless. They have 0 points.
Yeah.
They're the only team with 0 points, by the way.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Yep. And Q2, what did we see? We saw, I guess, nothing
Nothing out of the
or
ordinary.
anything.
Yeah. It's just the midfield teams battling each other. No big surprises as usual.
For me, the biggest surprise would be seeing Bottas out, finishing his run of Q3s.
Yeah. But I felt that was kind of inevitable considering his shift to Alfa Romeo.
Yep. I guess he was punching above his weight a little bit in the first 2, and it had to come to an end at some point. But it was a very, very impressive run for sure.
Yep, for sure.
And coming along to Q3, what could have been for Fernando Alonso, isn't it? Start of a phenomenal lap, as it was by all accounts. It was 2 tenths up on that fastest lap that Charles put in until hydraulics issue, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think something hydraulics related.
So he couldn't change down, and then he just went straight into the corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's a shame. It could have been a good lap. Could have. I still don't think he'd have gotten pole because I think that Ferrari would have been quicker in the final sector. But he would certainly be probably, I don't know, maybe P3 or P4 for sure. I think at least the second row. So yeah, quite unlucky. And I guess because of that, he kind of had a really bad weekend in general, finishing P17, I think, in the end.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of unlucky. I guess it could have been a good weekend, but I guess for Fernando, it gives him confidence that, at least he knows that a car can perform. And I think that's why he came back to Formula One, and that's why he came back for this new Rex to kind of compete at the top. And I guess if, Alpine develop their car as quick as, the competitors do, or even quicker than them, they might, be a bit more ahead. Maybe battling your Mercedes or even McLarens, maybe. I mean, well, they're already battling the McLarens, but like your Mercedes at least. Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of McLaren, P4 and P7 in their qualifying. And McLaren fan, Mr. Yash, what do you think of this? How much would you read into this result?
I mean, I would say it's kind of an anomaly so far because you have like 2 races where you have been pretty bad. I think last race Lando he got into Q3. I think I can't remember. Probably late, like 7 or 8 or something like that. I can't remember now. But then I guess it's good to have both the cars in the top 10 in qualifying because it's been a long time coming for McLaren because they ended the season on quite a rough kind of a patch as well because like Ferrari overtook them in the constructors for third and
getting
then
pit for P3.
yeah, exactly. And then also this season they had a horrible start. I mean, Bahrain was everyone thought they were probably the slowest team after Bahrain. So I guess it's good. It's a good motivation that at least they know that that there is something in the car. It's just about trying to find those right upgrades to make it a consistent thing. So I guess I think Lando was talking a lot about this, saying that this is very track specific, suits McLaren. So do not read too much into it. And I don't know why. Like Danny Rick was so happy, whereas Lando was like, nothing. It's all right. It's just an anomaly. So I guess we will see in the next few races, to really judge if McLaren actually have made a step ahead, because I don't think they have brought any upgrades personally. I think it's just the same car, like Lando was saying, it's the same car as Bahrain. So then it probably means that it's really just track specific, and sometimes even the weather conditions really help certain teams, or certain cars rather. So yeah.
Yep. I mean, that's true. Sharat, what about you? Do you have any differing opinions on this? Do you think McLaren are now back on top?
No, I mean, yeah, Yash did it pretty well. Lando himself said that you can't really read too much into this. It's to be suddenly scoring, getting P4 and qualifying after two. The last qualifying for them wasn't so bad, but yeah, in Bahrain, they were way down the order. So I think McLaren will be hoping for that sort of upward trend in progress that Mercedes is seeing. But I think, yeah, I hope they are well within a midfield fight. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. That'll be good to see more cars battling at the top. And speaking of battling at the top, one driver who couldn't manage to do this was Carlos Sainz, after getting quite unlucky in that final qualifying stint. Shard, can you just bring us through what happened to Sainz and why he couldn't set a good competitive timing?
If I remember correctly, he had an issue with starting the car. I don't know whether this was before the Alonso crash or after that, but
I think it's after. So I think before was he had an Alonso crash, so the red flag kind of invalidated his lap. And then when he went into the pit, when he was trying to come out again, he had a steering wheel issue or something like that. Yeah.
And then he couldn't start the car. And then that didn't give him enough time to warm up the tires. And then he just had a horrible lap after that, which put him down in P9. Yeah,
pretty much.
Was not a good day. Basically, both Spanish drivers were in Spain without the S. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Yep, and I think that's it for qualifying. Anything else that you guys want to talk about?
Charles Leclerc, another pole.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, fast driver, fast car. I think it's a great combination for sure. But it just felt like that Red Bull was missing something all weekend.
Max was complaining a lot about the car, I think, throughout the weekend. He wasn't happy with the balance. He wasn't happy with the tire warm-ups and everything. And I think even after the post-quali interview, he was just telling, I can't remember who was the interviewer, but he was just telling that person that, that the car was he's just not happy with the car. And I think that kind of translated into his pace. But then the surprising stat, if you guys actually saw, is that the whole lap of Q3, the final lap, both Charles and Max were almost equal until the final 2 turns. So your penultimate corner and that's where Charles basically gained three tenths over Max.
Was that the one where Max had a lockup or something? Or was that one of his previous
He didn't have a lockup. The car just was a bit slow into that, I guess. The Red Bull was a lot slower than the Ferrari.
Right.
So, because I was watching the post qualifying, and I was watching I was watching the pre-race warm up, and they were talking with Charles on the Sky, the F1 pad, whatever they have, and they were comparing both the laps, and that's where I was like, they were actually really close. And in fact, at one moment, Max was actually ahead of Charles. At the end of the whole turn 9, turn 10 sequence, Max was actually ahead, but he lost all that time in the final 2 turns basically.
Hmm.
So I guess it's just probably showing that I think the Red Bull was really struggling in the final sector, where like maybe in the opening of the lap they had really good tire wear, but then the car basically eat the tires too fast, giving
Right.
you less rubber to the last 2 corners probably. Or at least that's what I think what happened. That's why there's a pace difference. And also psychologically, if you're not happy with the car, you're going to find it a little bit harder to extract those few small tenths forward as well. I feel. So I guess all of that played a part for why Max was probably second, but not a big deal because all of us probably thought Red Bull had a faster race car on Sunday, but that of course didn't turn out to be too well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, let's move on to Sunday in that case. And I want to talk about the race start, obviously. And maybe this is something I'm reading too much into. You guys let me know if it is. But I saw when you see Charles start, what he's doing, he starts and then he moves in towards the right hand side of the track, which is the P2 side of the track. And what he does is it kind of forces Max to take the outside line. But that is where the other Red Bull is. That's where Checo is starting from. And yeah, maybe I'm just reading too much into this, but it seems like a really smart move by Charles to be forcing his number 1 rival into his number 2 rival. And like kind of slowing them down. And it worked pretty well for both Charles and Hamilton because Hamilton got that 1 place up in the start. What do you guys think? Is that something that you would consider as a smart move, or is it just something that happens because Charles was trying to take the better line?
It's quite a tight one for me. I would say I honestly didn't think of this until you're talking about it, and now I'm trying to replay the replay of the race replay back in my head. So now thinking about it, I mean, it could be. I mean, obviously, I don't think personally that Charles' intention was that. It's more of, as a race start, you always want to kind of cover the inside so that the driver can't catch, put his nose in, even if he has a good start, so that he just has to force the other way around. So I guess that's what he's trying to do. And probably with Checo having a good start, it kind of looked that way, I guess. That's the way I think it. But I mean, that could be a tactic probably later on in the season where you have Charles probably battling for the championship. Well, not probably, definitely. I think at the current stage. So
no, the probable thing is whether there's going to be someone to fight for the championship with him.
Oh yeah, man. I think by the summer break, before I go for my Spa Grand Prix, I think the championship might already be wrapped up by Ferrari. Who knows, man? At the current rate of the reliability of Red Bull, things look pretty dire for them, I would say. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it was a great start. And especially I was quite surprised with Lewis's start. I mean, he just dive bombed Perez into the first corner, if you think about it. It was a good move. I guess it gave us some good attacking and defensive kind of showcase to us fans, because there's not much happening at the front. It was mainly happening between Perez and Hamilton, and then the whole bunch of this, and George as well was involved with Perez at some point. So yeah, it was pretty interesting start.
George was involved with Max as well for a bit.
Was he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. But was there anything else that stood out to you guys on that race start that it's like you're like, wow?
Fernando's helmet cam.
Yes. Oh my god, that was amazing to watch. His eye movements left and right.
Yeah. It's pretty insane. I wish they would show a little bit of a slow-mo. Like, I kind of want to see the slow-mo. Like, I get, like, the fast is nice, but I kind of want to see a slow-mo replay to see actually how much a driver can actually see in the mirrors. Because, like, when they quickly look left and right, to us as a viewer, we can't really see the depth of how much the drivers can see. Whereas if you maybe do it in slow-mo or provide a still frame, like, I don't know, as a racing driver, like, well, I'm not a racing driver, I'm speaking as if I'm a racing driver, but like, like as a fan, I would actually like to see how much these drivers can actually see in the mirrors, because I think there's a lot of talks with how there's a lot of limited visibility in the mirrors between drivers. And I know, like, your camera position kind of, it doesn't give you a true picture of what the driver actually sees, but at least we can see a little bit of it. And I think that would be great if FOM just maybe gives a little bit of a slow-mo shot of those kind of cool head movements in the future. Yeah,
that would be pretty interesting. Yep. Well, if that is it for the race start, moving on to lap 2, and we have a bad weekend ending for Carlos Sainz. If I remember correctly, he touched the grass and then he spun out. Was that right? And he got beached in the gravel.
Pretty much it. He basically into the turn 9 chicane. He wanted to. I can't remember. I think it was the Haas in front of him, Mick Schumacher. He wanted to overtake him, but then he realized that it was too late. He can't actually overtake him in that corner, and he was already carrying way too much speed to kind of brake. And because if he broke, he would probably be too late, and he would just hit Mick, I think. So that's why he decided to he had a bit of oversteer as well at the same time. So he just decided to go straight. And then I think because of the speed of the car, he just couldn't control it and bit it into the gravel.
Yeah. The thing that stood out to me about that whole thing was just how calm he was after that. And it was just calmly on the radio saying, "Oh, you guys need to pick me up now." I was like, wow, that is very mature for a guy who just had a horrible weekend end with a DNF in the second lap.
You should have actually, I don't know if you've seen, but have you guys seen his post quali interview of how pissed he was on himself? I don't know if you guys saw, but he was talking about how you could really see his frustration about because he knows that he's the car to fight for pole, but then this reliability issues kind of hampered him and a little bit of bad luck as well. So he was really angry, and he was talking about how he won't be able to sleep, and he'll only be able to sleep peacefully once he recovers the position the next day. And then come the race day, I think it kind of showed in him where he was a little too desperate, in my opinion, to kind of make ground real quickly. Because I think Ferrari made a bad call by starting him in the hards, first of all, because I think everyone was having a lot of tire warm-up issues. And starting on hards means he's going to need even more time for tire warm-up, which means he was very vulnerable at the race start. So psychologically, as you're falling back as a driver, you would kind of want, oh shit, I need to get, excuse my language, I kind of want to basically, go forward again, go forward as fast as I can. But I think that kind of showed it a little bit. I think it's a little bit of I'm not going to say it's immaturity from him, but it's more of a lack of experience for him in kind of fighting with a top fuel car. Now that he knows he has a top fuel car, he feels the added pressure to kind of, make those moves. Or at least that's the way I saw it as, considering how we talk about this whole, the post-race, post-quali interview and stuff. What do you think, Shard?
Well, I think you got it bang on because Sainz himself admitted that the tires were not exactly up to its optimal condition, starting on the hard tires. So he thought he could make the move, and then he realized quite quickly he couldn't, and then immediately reached in the gravel. So big disappointment. I mean, I think he himself knew what possibility was, considering the pace difference between Ferrari and Red Bull. But what could have been? Even at worst, maybe it could have been a P5. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think he definitely had a pace to come back to P4 at least, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the Ferrari was really quick. It was a lot quicker than the McLaren, so from Mercedes and everyone as well. But I just felt that he kind of made a move he thought of making a move in a very wrong corner, in my opinion. It's such a fast left-right chicane. You are going to slow yourself down, the other driver down as well, and it's going to be a lot of more chance of you in crashing in a high-speed corner. Whereas if you had just waited 2 more corners and go on the straight and to the right-hander, which was coming up, I think he would have had more success overtaking then. So, like I said, I think he just felt the pressure and it kind of, he bottled it, I guess.
Right. Well, another driver who probably is feeling the pressure would be Seb Vettel, for sure. And I found something interesting, which is, I don't know, it's just kind of funny that when he had a bit of a moment where he went into the gravel and he said, sorry for that, it's so difficult to judge the car under braking. And it just felt like he was being apologetic, but also throwing shade with the same comment, because it's I'm sorry, but you guys built me a crap car. And it's just, it's nice to see. It's kind of funny in a way. It's just, it sums up Aston Martin pretty well, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they're just a horrible car right now, isn't it? The Aston Martin. Yeah.
Is it the worst car?
I would say so. I think that is the worst car. I mean, people might say it could probably be the Williams, but I mean, Albon showed really great pace in the Williams. Like he's kind of making the Williams look really easy to drive.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll come to Albon in a little bit once we go to later on in the race, but like I honestly think like the car just looks horrible in my opinion. I guess the Mercedes engine is not really helping a little bit as well, because I think we all know the Mercedes engine has a little bit of power deficit to your Ferrari engines and stuff. So all of these kind of factors kind of combine to make it look like a pretty average package. But with that said, like if they have figured out a good solution moving forward, and I think I've said this in all the episodes before, like this season is really a big developmental race between all the teams. But if you're able to quickly develop the car faster than your competitors, you're probably going to have a lot more chance of going up the field at the same time. But then with that said, if you have a weekend like how Aston Martin had, crashing, having so many repairs, that's going to hurt your cost caps and it's going to hurt your developmental as well. So it's something for the drivers to take note, I guess, because I think it's just not acceptable. I mean, the amount of incidents they had to change like Stroll's cars twice. Now Vettel crashed his car in the race as well. I think 2-3 times already crashes in the same Grand Prix itself. So I think it's just unacceptable. But I guess it also shows, like I said, that the car is just horrible to drive.
Yeah, I mean, the way he's crashed out of the race as well, I found it pretty odd because it's just the nature of that corner and out of turn 4, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's turn 4, yeah, probably.
I don't think we saw any other incidents there in that manner. And this Aston Martin is the only car to spin out when getting on the power out of turn 4, and it was just come on, what's going on at this point? It's not going to be Seb, because I mean he's not going to be crashing out at turn 4 doing that, so obviously he's not getting the car comfortable beneath him. But yeah, I mean Aston have a lot of work to do to catch up to even the closest competitors at this point would be Williams, I would say, and maybe if you go a step above, I don't know, Haas, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, all this, and that I guess it's in the next bracket, so to speak. But yeah, a lot of work that needs to be done.
Otmar made a good decision by jumping a ship.
Yes.
Yeah, and he jumped onto the right ship as well, I think.
Yeah.
Been doing pretty well. And yeah, I mean we touched on the Vettel's crash and something that happened in the safety car following that crash. I don't know if you guys saw Yuki brake checking Mick Schumacher.
Oh yes. Oh
Under
my god, that
safety
was
car.
scary.
Yeah.
Yes, and start pretty straight. That could have been a horrible incident. Oh my god. Yeah.
And wholesome Mick just going, holy cow, that was close. I was like, wow, bro, this guy, how is he a real F1 driver? I cannot imagine anyone else in that scenario.
I mean, if that was Michael Schumacher, he would be screaming off the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just the contrasting emotion between father and son, I guess. Like, it's nice to see. But I don't know. Do you guys know what was the verdict of the investigation? I didn't have the time to actually kind of look, because they actually investigated after the race about the Yuki and Mick. That incident. Because I didn't hear anything on Twitter, so I kind of assumed that there's probably no action or anything taken. But if you guys find anything, you could just let me know afterwards.
Yeah, I actually did not see anything as well. But
yeah, so it's probably there was no. Yeah.
I mean, this kind of thing, it's also quite minor. It's not something that is going to be all over Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, so, you could say that.
Yeah, so I'm not too sure how to check that after this episode. And okay, so that was a safety car. And another thing about that safety car which I noticed was on the restart, I think Charles didn't get away all that well from Max. And in fact, they went into turn 1 wheel to wheel. But through turn 1, turn 2, and then onto the next straight, Charles just seemed to have a really big advantage. So do you guys think that this is descriptive of the pace difference between the Red Bull and the Ferrari, or was that just one driver getting a better exit out of the corner?
Sharad, you want to go first?
I might say this is track specific, if I'm completely honest, because we did see in the last race that Red Bull were able to keep up with Ferrari. So if we saw the start of this race, Max was complaining about his tire opening up within the first 8-9 laps, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So Ferrari just had much better tire management throughout the race that Red Bull just couldn't hope to live with. So yeah, it might have been track specific, but who knows?
Right.
For me, I do feel that Ferrari actually has that pace advantage over Red Bull because the tire advantage. To me, the way I see this is the way the car is designed, the way the car is set up. All of that kind of influences your tire usage,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that kind of affected to how Red Bull had even greater tire usage. So with that said, like I know that the Red Bull, Max wasn't happy with the way the car was set up, so that probably led to having even more tire grading and stuff like that. But I think on genuine raw pace, I do feel that Red Bull actually have an advantage because in the corners, the Red Bull seem a lot faster than not Red Bull. The Ferrari seems a lot faster. Yeah, they seem a lot faster to me because we saw that in Jeddah as well. Jeddah, the Sector 1, the Red Bull. Why am I saying Red Bull again? The Ferrari was so mighty in Sector 1, whereas in Sector 2 or 3, where there's longer straights, the Red Bull was a lot quicker. So I guess you could say it's a little track specific, but I do think that we have seen enough so far to see that, Ferrari actually do have the better car. They are a lot reliable, first of all. So that gives them like plus 10 points already, in my opinion, because you can be fast, but if you don't finish the race, what's the point?
Right.
And we have seen already 3 retirements in the past 3 races for Red Bull. Which is actually really big for a team of their stature to have 3 retirements in the first 3 races. That's quite mega, honestly. So they are not doing well in reliability aspect, and the Ferrari just looks a lot quicker to me, man. I would say that the straight line speed advantage is towards Red Bull. But then at the same time, a lot of tracks, the coming up tracks, which I just have in mind, I think there's a lot more corners as well. Like Imola, apart from that main first straight, it's all corners. So I fully expect Ferrari to be at the top in Imola as well. So at least your high downforce circuits, I do expect Ferrari to be at the top. Then maybe your Spa or something like that, then maybe the Red Bull might be a better package at the current state of it, in my opinion.
Yep. I mean that seems fair. Just on the topic of Red Bull's reliability, Sharad, what's your thoughts?
Oh dear. That's all I have to say. Yeah, it's not good. Max has only finished 1 race out of the 3, and I mean we saw both Red Bulls DNFing in Bahrain. So yeah, I suspect this is not going to be a quick fix for them. It's definitely going to hamper them in some way in the next few races. Yeah, I mean, they can't be affording to lose this many points early on. And considering that Sainz was not going to finish the race, there was a double podium in the back for them. And instead of walking away with 33 points, probably they walked away with 18. So yeah,
the funny thing is that Red Bull are actually third in the constructors, Mercedes are second, and then even George Russell is actually second in the championship. So
yes, Max is 6th, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, the hype about Max versus Charles, but then George is second in the championship. So
yes.
I think that just sums up their reliability, honestly.
Yeah.
But when you look at it on the long-term basis, in the next few years, because of the engine regulation, the engine freeze regulations and all that, so what there is room for is making improvements to reliability, but what there isn't room for is making improvements to the power itself that it's delivered. So at this point, is it, just thinking in the long term, would it be better for you to have a fast and unreliable engine, or a slower but reliable engine?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Shar, you want to go first?
I mean, from that race alone, Christian Horner and George Russell said 2 very different things.
Yeah.
I think Christian said he'd rather have a fast car that's not reliable and try to fix that. Whereas Russell said that you just have to finish the races.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how quick your car is. So I think Yeah, I mean, different teams have different opinions, but I think what Tarun said is true. Like, if you don't have a lot of room to improve your engine, like power, that could affect you in the long run, I guess.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how easy of a fix it would be, but I suspect it's not.
Mm.
So maybe we might see Mercedes having a bit of issues with their power units in the future, but we will know. That's what we thought Ferrari were gonna face, but look where they are now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, on the power unit point, I think, I'm not sure of the specifics of how much you can regulate, but I do believe that you can't regulate the power output. But I believe if you have issues with the fuel system, you can kind of upgrade the fuel systems, I think. I'm not too sure.
Mm.
So if there's any, the tech nerds in the comments, please correct me if I'm wrong, basically. But because, I think the Mercedes issue is about the fuel output because they changed to the E10 fuel, and I think they're not able to get the output or the performance from the fuel which they actually want. I think that's their issue towards the power output rather than the engine unit itself having an issue. Or at least that's what's from my understanding. So if they are able to actually improve that fuel efficiency to the engine, then I believe they can probably increase the output as a general without actually making any changes to the engine itself. But obviously that's for the long-term perspective. But coming back to your question, personally, I would prefer to have a reliable car. Honestly, because I think George said it perfect. Like you need to finish the race, and we have seen in this first three races already that just by Mercedes having a really slow car, but just finishing the race is giving them a hit in the championship in both your drivers and your constructors. So I mean, if Red Bull are gonna lose out on 25 points every other race, then it kind of makes it like Mercedes kind of make it up with having at least 10 points every race, like on the long run average in that sense, in
I mean,
hypothetically.
these are Mercedes's, like safety points that they have in the back now, where
Exactly.
they have that slower car, but at the same time they're still scoring, and ultimately that's gonna be more helpful to you than having a fast car that's not scoring points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Like once they fix their issues, I mean, imagine where with already the amount of points they've already scored and Red Bull already lacking behind, they are going to get an upper hand on both Red Bull and maybe even Ferrari. Who knows? I believe they already have an upper hand over Red Bull, honestly. I think it's just a matter of another 2-3 races, and I'm pretty sure they'll bring some major upgrade into the car because I don't think they would want to wait too long as well. I mean, of course,
I
yeah,
think they
you're
are
saying?
looking to bring some to Imola actually.
Yeah, I was hearing something about those also, but I think George says this perfectly that I can't remember if it was George or someone. I think it was Ted Kravitz actually. So I was watching Ted's race notebook, and he was actually talking about how like Mercedes and all these teams were actually not fast right now. They're actually kind of reserving to bring upgrades because they do not want to make small changes to the car, which leads up to the cost cap. Because the small changes might give you very few tenths in increase of pace, which is in a whole marginal scale, it's not that effective. Whereas if you wait a while, you collect all your resources together and you splurge it all on one big upgrade, you're going to get a lot bigger marginal gains compared to the small upgrades every now and then. So I think that's what a lot of teams, and especially Mercedes, are waiting for. Like I think in one race, suddenly Mercedes is going to turn up like this, and they're going to be competing with Ferrari. I mean, I fully expect them to for a team of their stature. So I mean, it's fascinating. Like we're going to see this developmental race play out throughout the whole season, and I think it's a really cool aspect of Formula One, honestly.
Yep. Yeah, that is true. And I think for Mercedes in particular, when you talk about this, when you bring up this topic, one thing that you have to consider is obviously they have the least wind tunnel time. And aero seems to be a big issue for them, especially when you consider porpoising, which is, I mean, it's almost entirely based on your aero and your suspension. So this is something that they have to use more wind tunnel time to fix, or at least they have to make sure they can back up whatever they expect to get with some sort of reasonable data. And I think Toto Wolff mentioned that they are not getting that. They're not seeing effects that are supporting what they do in the testing. So obviously this is going to be, I feel like this is one more factor that is maybe slowing down their progress a bit. But yeah, like you said, it's going to be they will bring a big upgrade package at some point, and maybe not Imola, but at some point in the future. And I think that will be the point where kind of like the turning point for Mercedes this season.
Mm. Yeah, but the funny thing you mentioned is, sorry, Shari, you want to go ahead first?
No, all I was going to say was that, despite everything, Mercedes has been quite impressive. To back
Yeah,
those
for
two
sure.
podiums and to secure those points and to be beaten in the championship. Operationally, they're doing really well. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're playing a very smart game, like George said, they're just finishing the race, minding their own business and capitalizing on anyone who makes mistakes, basically.
Right.
So far. But then, yeah, I just want to bring an interesting point on what Taran mentioned. Like, you talked about Mercedes porpoising, but apparently, if you looked at Melbourne, they didn't really have that much of an issue, I felt. They look okay. If you looked at the Ferrari, Charles was mad. Like, his head was hate banging, like a heavy metal music going on into the car throughout that whole, the straight, basically.
Yeah. So what I've seen in the race and what I've seen on Twitter is the Ferrari is porpoising quite a lot on the straights, but it's only happening at high speeds. So they're not carrying that porpoising into the corners, which is a huge bonus for them. That the Mercedes don't have that. They have the porpoising under braking. Apparently, it's even more, and that's a reason why obviously George and Lewis are not as comfortable with the car as they could be if there was no porpoising. And I guess that is going to be making a lot of difference because, I mean, if you're not in control, if you don't feel in control of the car at down the main straight, down the back straight, that is going to affect your lap times a little bit less than it is going to affect if you don't feel in control of the car through a corner.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
But it is a good point because both the Ferrari and the Mercedes were porpoising quite a bit in Australia. And the Red Bull wasn't. And
exactly. And I think that's where Ferrari is kind of losing it out. Like, I feel that they do have a good engine, but because of the porpoising, it's kind of eking those few little bit of speed away from the straight line speed because you kind of lose a lot of friction and all that stuff, physics, essentially. So
I guess that's also where Red Bull find a few extra km per hour down the straights.
Yeah.
I think we saw that in Jeddah. And
definitely.
Did we see that in Bahrain?
I mean, I was actually surprised because I didn't notice that much of proposing in Jeddah and stuff, actually. I don't know why. It's just suddenly Albert Park, they came in, and the way they were able to, I think they probably went really low down first, which is probably why they were able to propose so much. But like you said, they don't have any problems into the cornering and into the braking.
Yeah.
Like as soon as, they press the brakes, the car is like smooth sailing immediately, which is, it's pretty interesting, I guess. I mean, I guess it kind of shows that Ferrari have really kind of nailed this season's new wrecks, basically, in my opinion.
I think they found that right balance between an acceptable range of porpoising and just making sure you got the control of the car when you tap the brakes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep. And rounding off this race, we obviously have to talk about Albon driving what was it, 57 laps on the hard tires. One thing that maybe noteworthy is that the hard tire was not, the tire selection was not consecutive tires. The hard tire was actually one higher. I think it was a C5. Wait.
No, I think it was C3. 5 is the softest.
5 is the softest. Yeah. Either way, it was one harder than what it was supposed to be linearly, because I think the Pirelli guy said that they didn't find a notable enough difference between the tires. And maybe this is just when you compare this to Sainz, and I'm just thinking maybe if Sainz had not been as aggressive on the opening, maybe if he had played it out long, he could have really been up there and just fighting with Max and Perez for the podium spots.
Yeah, I mean, could have been, could have been.
But,
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Unfortunately, Alonso started on the hard tire, and the timing on the first VSC and the safety car thing screwed him over. So I don't think Sainz would have been that far up. I think on raw pace, maybe Ferrari would have been able to catch up, but I think starting on the hard tire may not actually have been the best strategy for Sainz. but it
Yeah.
worked out pretty well for Albon for sure. And I don't know if you all saw Aston Martin's 200 IQ strategy of switching from the hard to the medium to the
I
hard
know.
just to get the medium
On
high
the
hard.
very first safety car, yeah.
Yeah. And to
So-
be fair, Stroll was in the points until like I would say the very end.
The penalty, he had a penalty, 5 seconds penalty
Yeah,
for
that's right.
weaving on the
Exactly.
straights.
Yeah.
And actually, going back to that 500 IQ move by Aston Martin, in fact, I think it could have worked out. And obviously, when you see that these guys made the tires work all the way to the end, and if I remember correctly, Albon at the end was putting in laps comparable to the front runners, lap timings comparable to the front runners.
Yep.
Yep. So in fact, we say it's a 500 IQ strategy in a bit of a mocking way, but it really could have worked out well if it hadn't gone like very wrong for them.
I mean, it could have been, but I do feel that it's also a lot of like the way the tire works is also very car dependent.
Yeah,
Each
for
car is
sure.
different, and I think Albon said this in his press conference post race, where he said that he just feels that the hard tire is the better tire for the Williams car compared to any tire, and he even joked like maybe they should just qualify on the hard tires actually instead. So I guess I don't know, like he was saying that he just felt that the car could go faster and faster, like the tires didn't wear too much, and I guess it just worked for the car, that car. And I guess it's great to see. I mean, of course, no, I'm not taking anything away from Albon. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. In fact, he should have been, I think we were talking in the chat, he should have been the driver of the day for all of us.
Speaking
So,
of which, I just always felt that the driver of the day voting ends too soon. Like it ends
it
right
does.
at the end of the race, and that is not
Yeah.
enough time for people to vote.
I mean, I just voted for Daddy Rick just for vibes, Australian vibes. So, yeah. But I mean, coming back to Albon, I think, fantastic effort to get Williams' first points as well. And it's going to be, at least in the current stage, I do feel it's going to be hard for Williams to get points, personally, because the midfield is just so competitive. And you really got to take a lot of, like, whatever opportunities you got to make the most out of it.
Yeah.
And I believe, like, in fact, Aston could have been in the points if not Stroll, hadn't had that 5-second penalty. I think he was ahead, right? He was P9, I think. I can't remember at the end of the race, but I do believe he was in the points until like the post-race penalty just put him out of the points, basically. So, yeah, it just shows that... Sorry?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Albon could have actually been higher. Williams had a slow pit stop at the very end. He could have been up there with Gasly, and who knows, given like what Tarun mentioned, he was matching the leaders at one point on that soft tire. He could have gotten P9, so...
I think he came right like Zhou. I can't pronounce his name for the
Guan Yu
Guang Yu. I'm just going to call him Guang. Okay, Guang. Sorry, Guang. My apologies for butchering your name. But I mean, he was, I think, at the end when Albon came out, he was right on his tail, I think. So Albon had to defend that one final lap, I think.
Wow.
I think it was on the soft tires at the last lap, pretty sure. Yeah, so... I mean, fantastic result for Williams. Happy for them. And I guess it's a kick for Latifi, especially because it's kind of, again, showing that, that a different driver is able to pull above the weight, which he isn't able to do. Which I kind of feel for him because I do feel he's a good driver, but I feel he needs to perform as well, get into the mix with Albon.
Yep. I think with Mazepin out, we're just seeing this like Stroll and Latifi coming back in that limelight kind of as that pay
the
driver.
Cash is king kids.
Yeah, cash is king, daddy's money kind of drivers.
Canada.
Which is unfair, I think. Stroll in particular, I would say, has proved himself as an F1 driver for me.
This was just a joke. I do feel Stroll has proved his worth in this sport for me, for sure. But I guess there's still question marks over Latifi because even last season he was constantly being beaten by Russell. And even this season, Albon's outperforming him despite being out for a year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, running off the whole weekend, so we did see quite a few track layout changes. How far do you guys think those changes influenced the race or made the race better than as compared to previous years?
Barrett?
Well, personally, I've not really liked Melbourne in the past. What you mentioned, there's not really a lot of overtaking opportunities. I think it was the turn 6 to turn 10 that complex where they made a lot of difference. Where in the past you'd have to brake and then make a sudden change in the steering wheel and whatnot. And now it's more flowy. And then we saw like more overtaking opportunities and whatnot. Yeah, I think the racing was so much better than we've seen in previous years here in Melbourne. So maybe it's also got to do with the new regulations. I may not be entirely sure, but yeah, I think for one, it's a step in the right way for Melbourne. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it did show there was quite a few on-track battles. Maybe not at the top, but at least in the midfield, we saw a lot of track action. Like a lot of previous years, you'd probably get like 3 to 5 overtakes for the entire race, basically. But this year, we are seeing quite a few. And I do feel that it's a bit in regards to your the new car regulations as well and stuff like that. But I do feel that the track layout have made us not significant, a little bit of change. But I felt was even more significant change would have been if they had not removed that 4th DRS zone. I know we come back to the DRS debate, but I felt like maybe at certain points of the race, we saw a lot of cars, basically behind each other. Like I think Perez overtook Hamilton or George, I can't remember, one of the Mercedes, and that whole complex of corners basically. And if we had a DRS zone, we could have seen even more overtakes, I feel. But yeah, I think it did show that there was a risk, I felt, because you saw how Sainz just misjudged it, had to go off, and he was really lucky not to collect anyone behind him. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he had like 3 cars go around him, and he could
exactly. He was just a passenger at that moment. So I do feel it was the right decision, but man, if they just had a DRS zone, that we could have seen even more overtakes, I feel.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I guess it would have been less spectacular to see moves like Perez on Hamilton, because that was just, you had a few continuous corners of them going wheel to wheel until, I mean, he did get past pretty much on merit of the car. So that's where the debate on DRS comes down to, it's like, it doesn't make that move too easy. And well, ultimately, its effectiveness, I don't think we'll really be able to judge whether it's needed or not until it's really gone. Then when they get rid of it, then we can be like, oh no, they should bring it back. But yeah, but that's going to be that's a debate for another day, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And well, looking ahead to Imola in 2 weeks' time.
Before we just move ahead, I just want to give a shout out to Charles for completing the Grand Slam.
Yes.
First Ferrari driver since Alonso in 2010 Singapore. That's a long time coming for Ferrari. So,
yep.
I mean, I'm just happy for them. I think the few years of pain they had, they deserve a bit of celebration. I mean, who knows how the season will unfold, but at least they should enjoy the moment for the time being.
Yep. Any more thoughts on the recently concluded weekend?
Well, I want to say that Mercedes were actually, their race pace was surprising. Yeah, I don't know if you all saw, but actually on the medium tires stint when they started on, even after Perez took Hamilton, Hamilton's actually able to keep up with Perez for much of that stint. So I think as a whole, Mercedes have a lot of positives to think from this race. Obviously, Lord Russell got lucky with the timing of the safety car and whatnot, but yeah, I think just this race in particular, Mercedes looked a lot closer to Red Bull than we have seen in past races. So yeah.
Yeah. I do feel like the medium tire for some reason just suits the Mercedes car, whereas the hard tire suits the Red Bull car. So we're kind of trying to see, we can see a trend forming between teams where certain teams prefer certain tires, especially, whereas the Ferrari is just mighty in all 3 tires basically. So yeah, good to be a Ferrari fan, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, Leclerc has 71 points, while Mercedes and Red Bull have 65 points, if I'm not wrong. That's a crazy stat. That is a crazy stat. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still very early in the championship, so anything can happen, to be fair.
Yeah, but I like the ring of having the Monegasque national anthem with the Italian playing back to back. I think it sounds really nice on a podium. So I wouldn't mind getting used to it, honestly.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind. It's nice to see Ferrari back on top. I think Ferrari is such an iconic name of the sport. It's something you want to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And you can't just hate Charles, man. Charles is, I think, one of the most loved drivers on the grid.
Yeah.
It's really impossible to hate him. So I mean, I do hope that Mercedes and even the Red Bull would provide a fight, because as a sport, we want to see good fight at the top, which I do believe will come. I don't think Ferrari's dominance is going to last throughout the season.
Mhm.
I mean, if they do, then hats off to them. But yeah, realistically, I do see them. I wouldn't say fall back, but I do see the gap closing down between the top three teams eventually.
Yep. Well, that was concluding a very interesting weekend. Maybe not as interesting a race as we had hoped, but there's plenty more races left, and let's look forward to the next one, Imola, in 2 weekends' time. What's our predictions, guys? Who's gonna take pole and who's gonna take the win? Sharat?
I mean, it's quite obvious, right? Yeah, it's probably going to be a Ferrari 1-2, unless, something like what happened this race happens. But yeah, I think Leclerc will probably get pole. Who knows? I mean, that's what we thought, in the previous race, and then Perez came out of nowhere and got P1 as well. So yeah, but I'm leaning more towards the 1-2 for Ferrari, Leclerc, Sainz, and probably I want to say Max, but Checo's been quick there as well, so I'm just going to throw in one and see maybe Checo might get P3 for qualifying. Yeah.
And the race?
In the race, oh man.
I mean, I'm assuming you're gonna say Charles is gonna win, right?
Yeah, I hope it's unpredictable. I hope we see like Alonso on the podium or something. I don't know. It's big of me asking that, but yeah, probably it's gonna be 1-2 for Ferrari. Maybe Mercedes might end up on the podium, considering how they've been doing. So, okay, I'm just gonna say my personal wish. I hope we see a Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes podium. Maybe Leclerc, Checo, Hamilton. Just How about you, Yash?
Okay.
I think we should first do the rain dance to have an unpredictable race. So all of us do rain dance for 2 weeks to praise the rain gods of Imola to rain like last year. Then we might have a bit of unpredictability. But yeah, I think like Shard said, I do expect Ferrari to be on pole again. Because like I mentioned, I feel that the circuit suits Ferrari a lot. And I think with the Tifosi behind them, they're going to be even highly motivated. But I'm going to, as much as I love Charles, I'm going to give the pole to Carlos, because I do feel that he's one of the most underrated drivers in the grid. And I think that Ferrari have arguably the best driver pairing, in my own personal opinion. And considering the weekend he had at Melbourne, I think he's going to be fired up to, do really well this coming race. And, what a better way to get your first pole position in F1 ever. That's in front of a Tifosi. Because even though there's, this whole thing of Monza being Tifosi, if I'm not wrong, Ferrari's actual home track is Imola. It's closer by to their Maranello factory and all that, whatever thing it is. So, yeah, I mean, it would be a great way. So I would really like to see Sainz on pole, Leclerc probably second, and I'll probably go with Max third, because at the current stage, I don't see Mercedes really challenging at the top. But who knows? Like Darren mentioned, if they bring good upgrades in the next race, like they're rumored to, then there might be a mix. And then in the race, I'm gonna go back to Charles winning it once again. Yeah, Charles. Then I'll probably go with Carlos, and then probably rounding it up with, let's just give it to Alonso.
All right, interesting. I am actually gonna go a little bit of a different route for pole. I feel like Red Bull are owed one of the mega laps right now, especially for Max. Haven't really seen something like he did last season. He's done that quite often. So, they just need that setup to click just right. So I feel like Imola is going to be the time where they get that right. And I'm going to back Max for pole. That said, I am not backing them for the race win. I'm going to give that one to Sainz. I do think the Ferraris will come out on top in the race in the end. And I want to say Charles, but it just seems like a very easy answer, so I'm going to go Sainz. And Hamilton on the podium. Or maybe George. Yeah.
What if
I
we
mean,
all
for you
get
at the moment,
what if we
Sorry,
all
sorry?
get bamboozled and Magnussen ends up on the podium?
I mean, I would love to see that as well, man.
Ferrari 1, 2, 3, bro. It gets into the podium.
Yes.
You never know. I mean, that's the beauty of this season. You never know.
Yeah, man. Who knows what happens?
Mhm.
But it's nice. I like Imola as a track. It's very historic. Although with that said, it's a little difficult to overtake, to be honest, apart from there's only one or two real locations you can really overtake on the circuit.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how the cars follow again. Yeah, I just hope the rain gods do their rain dance. Well, we do the rain dance and the rain gods give us rain rather, so that we can see a spicy race.
We've had a wet race at Imola for 2 years in a row, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, is it 2 years? I just remember last year. I just remember that George and Bottas crashing and the rain and Hamilton screwing up.
Oh yes,
Yep.
2020 also we had a race in Imola. I think it was in the rain also.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see if we get that time lucky.
Yep.
Find that out in our next episode.
Yes, that's right. So, we will come back to you on that. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this episode, and it's been a bit of a long one. I think we had one instruction for this episode, and we kind of failed the instruction. But nonetheless, I think it's been a good opening 3 weeks, 3 races, and long may this streak continue of having good racing. But yeah, we're looking forward to the next race and the next episode that we do for you guys. But well, until then, it's me, Tarun, it's Yash and Sharat, and we are signing off. And see you in the next episode. Ciao, guys.
Bye.